Hey everybody, it's Tafony here once again. Hope you're doing well. Today we're rambling with the SSF Metalloid Percussion Entity. It is a 14 HP metallic noise generator for Eurorack, and it sounds like this. Okay, a couple things before we get started today. I didn't want to take this out of the rack and put it next to the Mordak's data. I want to leave it where it's going to stay. So I'm going to sit here today because it's in such a low row next to all of my other drum modules. I don't think the usual placement next to the Mordak's data today is going to offer much info. It's just going to be sending multiple noise voices into it. It's just going to be a mess. So much as it might look cool, I think we're just going to leave it where I plan to keep it. Second, the manual makes a big thank you to Jason Lazara, Dyson Ant, for designing the original idea of the metallic noise synthesis engine, the one that's used here. I didn't really see much online mentioning Jason's involvement in building this thing, so I wanted to kind of shout that out because I didn't know until I was just picking up the manual, basically, so maybe I'm just oblivious, but I wanted to shout that out. And then last thing, if you saw my Gear I Regret Selling the Most video, you saw that the SSF percussion modules were on that list, and finally we've returned to them all. And on that note, I just wanted to say that the first time around I owned this, I didn't get that the triggers cascaded. I knew that the output cascaded, like A out and B out will mix as indicated by these parentheses on the bottom, A out mix, but I didn't know actually if you send one trigger into one of the inputs with nothing in the B input, it actually fire both voices. So sitting down and revisiting this for the first time when I got it in the rack again, I was like, why is the decay not changing when I'm messing with it here? Well, it's actually because you can fire both. So with that being said, to start this off, we're just going to turn the B level all the way down, A level is all the way up. We're listening to the A output. I'm going to send a sequence to that, and we'll bring that in here. But just be aware that we are only listening to the A voice to get started until I indicate that we're listening to both, because if we bring in our B voice, it actually fired both voices, which I didn't realize. So, okay, so on with the show. I've got that sequence going into just the A voice. And what I wanted to also say that I thought was interesting to get started, the other SSF voices, like the Ultra Perk and the Ultra Kick, are resonant filters, and ironically what would I, in my mind, expect to be like a noise source for metallic voices, of course that's the one with VCOs. So you have 3 VCOs here, 2 VCA and VCFs in the individual outputs. We're just gonna, again, listen to the first one. So right now, we'll talk about the individual controls, but just know, listening to the first one, you can set a decay here. Which controls the VCA. And then I'm going to skip over the filter mod and come back to it. We're going to get over to the filter section. We have a low pass filter. There's no control over the resonance, it's just fixed. But it is fixed in a fashion that is very tasty, delicious, I don't know. The adjectives that come out on the show, I have no idea, it's always about food. Low pass, can mute it completely. But what I like to do a lot of the time on the Metalloid Percussion Entity is use this filter mod to low pass gate this basically. And it gets very reminiscent of the steady state gate, which is a very good thing in my opinion. Now, you'll notice this doesn't have its own envelope, so it's just a duplication of the decay, I believe, as indicated by that gold arrow. So basically the length of your amplitude envelope is going to be the length of your filter mod, and that's just fine. That is very low pass gate-esque, and I love it for that. And I also love to open said filter with that style. So that's low pass opening it or closing it. You get this crazy inverse swoop. And I'm going to use the adjective crazy a lot here because Metalloid is very experimental. The sounds are never too wacky. Like the implementation of this inverse swoop here can get very wacky. So that sounds like almost like kick territory. When you go into the bandpass filter, I'm going to take our filter mod out. I know it seems kind of backwards to go through the filter and the VCA stuff first, but I feel like it's such an important precursor to what's going on in the metallic noise section that we need to cover that first. So let's just do that. But just note, material is on macro 1. We'll talk about what that is in a minute. Tune's at noon, and variant is basically at noon as well. Here's the bandpass. And I'm getting like Carpless Strong vibes. Like resonator, right? That's a beautiful thing. Like, again, to say it's really wacky, I just mean these aren't necessarily the craziest sounds, but to think of, you know, a noise generator basically having sounds like that, that's a beautiful thing. What if we do some filter mod? Get some sort of lasering going on. No control over the resonance. But again, they just kind of set things in a perfect spot for you. Right? And there are infinite combos, like I just said. Again, when we get into this, the bandpass is going to sound very different under different materials. But I want to go through the filters first. Here's high pass now. But maybe so before we get into high pass, let's do bandpass negative. You get this kind of like swelling in thing, which is cool. Yeah. Maybe if we do hi-hat territory. The variety of sounds, and I know this is pretty consistent for all of the non-ultra kick SSF drum modules, but like the variety here and the range is kind of, it's pretty crazy. Let's do high pass. Do 4 on the floor again. Maybe we'll just do a sweep here, so high pass all the way up. Filter mods in. There's a nice amount of resonance though, like it. Having no resonance control, my first concern is that there's not going to be enough resonance. It is certainly set in a way that doesn't lack it, that's for sure. Let's do negative sweep. Shorter decay. And some of the wackiest sounds too will come from like really short decays with really drastic filter mods. Go back. Okay, let's go over the metallic noise generator section, bring that in here. So much like a analog hi-hat module would, you have one noise source and then 2 sets of filters and VCAs that you control independently, but they all share the same noise source and just decay and filter based on that. You can get some really different sounds out of the 2 voices, but we're going to just look at what makes that metallic noise first. Again, I thought it was interesting that the Ultra Perc didn't have any VCOs on board. It was just a resonant filter, which is really cool. But the Metalloid is 3 VCOs. So what you get is the variant control, which controls the detuning of them. It doesn't make any specific mention in the quick start guide of how it's detuning, but I swear I hear some ring mod, and maybe it's just landing in a place that sounds that way. I mean, that would be a very metallic thing, right? And then there's this macro tune. Sounds very ring moddy to me. Maybe it's just such an octave up that it sounds similar, but there are variants in there that sound very like that, right? And the other thing I want to point out here, it almost sounds bit reduced, and I wonder if it's made of square waves. It doesn't say if it's triangle core or what. If you know, shout it out. But I just hear like bit crushing down here, right? Which makes me think square waves. And it sounds juicy in a very digital way, which is interesting for an analog VCO. At the top end of the range, very belly, variant up to noon. We can almost get that like ring mod thing I was talking about. And again, I don't think it's actually ring mod, but sounds like it. If you want metallic. So let's bring this down a little bit. I feel like you want to actually be in a pretty high range when you're in the Metalloid. Like it can get super deep, and it kind of ends up in more noise territory in there. But for me, I feel like it's at its best up in here, like almost in the FM bells thing. And speaking of FM, let's get into the material section. So there's 3 FM macros. The whole material control is nonlinear FM. If we come in here, we have 1, 2, 3. Not sounding very different, but when we bring in the material control, here's 1, 2, and 3. So even if I was an FM expert, it doesn't really go into much detail in the manual about what's specifically happening, other than it's a relationship between the 3 VCOs. So when you turn this VCA, or when you turn the material knob, I believe there's actually some sort of attenuation going on between the FM buses. And realistically, I think the knowledge that you need to take into this is basically like master tune, master detune, and then FM macros. And that should give you all the tools you need to just like explore, right? So let's find some cool metallic tones. So I noticed the first material macro sounds kind of bassy. If we compensate with a little bit of tuning, or tuning up, variant controlling it around. If we go into 2. One of my buddies messaged me about this one, said don't be afraid to turn the variant control all the way off, because you get some cool timbres that you might be inclined to always be exploring every knob. So let's explore the variant knob. Because sometimes no detune sounds good too. And yeah, maybe listening to these as isolated one-shots, oh, there's some nice bells, isn't always the most interesting thing to hear. But in practice, we can start to shape this in other ways. So let's make our VCA a little shorter, bring in some more triggers, sculpt the crap out of it with a bandpass filter. Try and find the spot where... There it is. Just need a longer VCA decay. Bring in some more triggers. And this is also for all of those reasons I just mentioned, one of those modulation monsters that you really want to throw lots of it at. So on that note, maybe we can try modulating the variant first. Let's go in and send it a triangle wave from the 3 body. So our variant's going up. No attenuverters on here. And I think that's okay given how I really like to get crazy with modulation here. I didn't mention the trigger buttons on here. Just like the Ultra Perk, they double as an indicator of your VCA, so there it's going. Yeah, I like that. What if we modulate that material now? Bring this up a little bit in volume. Material's a pretty subtle thing to modulate. If we go into 3rd mode, it might be a little less. Yeah. We modulate the tune instead. And honestly, I feel like this is one of those modules where if you're not modulating the tune, you're kind of missing out. So I will take it out, but we will definitely come back to it later. Now, I want to talk really briefly before we get into the other one as well. Let's go back to the high pass maybe. Send that filter mod negative. Yeah. Triggering both of them, so if you don't want to use it as like an open and closed hi-hat, you can just get a even fatter sound by stacking them. So like I said, this little golden indicator shows that I'm triggering both now. And let's just make it a little similar. Make one low pass and one high pass. Yeah, I'm gonna modulate the tune now. And this, again, that like going from the super digital low end of the tune to the super like metallic end of the high end of it, I feel like is just really somewhere you want to be. Now, it can be used as a synthesis voice, as all SSF drum modules can, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I would encourage you to explore the many different sounds, because in the first shooting of this video, I basically spent half an hour strictly exploring the material sections and then going into one voice and noodling with the different filters, because you can get such different sounds out of the two voices. And let's just do that. Screw it. In goes the other voice. Yeah. And like, hear how that first voice with the use of the bandpass filter is very metallic. And the other one sounds very much like a drum. Like, the filters do so much to shape the sound, right? To even say that they're like a macro control for both the voices isn't like, you know, they both shape them in their own way. This is so low pass gaty, it's like, you know? Now you can also, one thing I want to point out, use the VCAs independent of the VCA decays. So if I want to modulate B's VCA here, you can. So if there's any shortage of crazy modulation you can throw at this thing, I'll be damned, because it is not. It's not lacking anything. And then there is a choke circuit as well, so this means A is going to be choked by B. This means B is going to be choked by A. So consider, if that's your closed hat, you might want to make that the thing, or just use it independently. What happens if we're using the choke circuit and the VCA? Oh, it's still choking. Interesting. Okay, well, very cool. Happens if we throw a little reverb on there. A little distortion. Comp it out. Yeah. And then I think I will take a little bit of time here, because I can't help myself, to do a little bit of knob twiddling. Let's go in and modulate that tune. And I think I'm going to attenuate that a little bit, just so it's not as crazy, but I did like it. Maybe I'll even slow it down a bit, but let's attenuate that. Let's try a high pass on that second filter. This is again where I was like, when you have two voices going at the same time, it gets hard to tell what the minutiae is. What's being tweaked, right? Well, everything. Let's try a different material mode. Speed up my LFO. Because my LFO isn't synced, I feel like you gotta... Yeah, oh, that's cool. You gotta make your decays a little shorter to kind of reset it for it, you know? Let's try and modulate the material now. Maybe the variant. Ooh. Just the range of kooky sounds. I realize that sounds kind of pejorative, but I mean it in the most endearing way. This is like what I love about modular drums, right? Just like in your head, will you set out and be like, oh, I really want something that sounds kind of robotic, but kind of resonant and deep? Well, no, what would you even reach for, right? But when you explore something like the Metalloid Percussion Entity, those things just kind of like come out of the woodwork, right? So let's bring the tune down a bit. Yes. I absolutely adore this. Let's bring in some other voices just because, I mean, even on its own, like, it's so versatile, right? I can hear some, like, kick elements, right? It's not, like, strictly metallic. If I make this one into a high-pass filter, we can get a lot more metallic. Right? I love it for that. let's mix that into a submix. So bear with me a moment. I'm trying to reserve the knob twiddling for the other part, but maybe we can send this a melody just to hear it before we get out of here. Okay, send our sequence now. Maybe we'll just take out the ultra kick for one moment. Make our decays a little longer. So let's just listen to voice A first. Try and let you see. Ooh, nice and bassy on the low end of that. Yeah, I feel like these FM macros are going to make it pitch weirdly, track weirdly, I guess. And we'll take the material down. Yeah, and then I'll open the filters a little bit more. It just gets totally square waved, right? Like chiptune almost. There's like totally a resonant factor to it too, and I have a hair of reverb, but like, do you hear that? Low pass gate resonating thing? Band pass? And you can track the cutoff if you want to too. I didn't even modulate those. Oh, there's endless things, man. High pass envelope doing a little bit of popping, which can sound nice in percussive ways. Trigger the second one as well. Here it comes. Bring in the kick now. Sounds really haunting. Yeah. Everything in Eurorack works as a bass voice. Ooh. The tune macro, something's going on behind the scenes that like, it really changes the timbres, right? It's not just pitch. Something's happening, right? Maybe it's just my variant settings, but like, you go from chip tune to triangle, almost. Or like... Maybe it's just how these low pass gate sounding filter setups work, but listen to that. And if we do that to the cutoff, let's do A cutoff, so listen to just the A voice. Yeah, cool, variant. I'll have some melody coming through, sending that volt per octave to the variant input, cool. All right, let's get to doing some knob twiddling. I feel like I'm a drum module-aholic. This is like what makes Eurorack worth it to me. I really love these sort of things, so Metalloid Percussion Entity is no exception to that. And I'm Tafony. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that crap that YouTube's always on my case about not promoting to you. And I'll see you in the next video.